Imagine, if you will, the deluge of draconian anti-immigration policies that will immediately be on the table should Donald Trump secure the White House again in November 2024. We're on the cusp of a massive expansion of migrant detention facilities, a fast-tracking of expulsion authorities, and a monstrously restrictive set of asylum qualification standards. But wait, it's not just Donald Trump who is currently contemplating those measures. It's also Joe Biden. He is, at this moment, weighing a hardline crackdown on immigration. Joe Biden, the man who on his first day in office sent a bill to Congress seeking to, quote, restore humanity and American values to our immigration system. Well, what's changed? Perhaps Republican intransigence on foreign aid to Ukraine and Israel, matters that have ostensibly left Biden open to compromises on issues that were once seemingly non-negotiable. Now, NBC News can report that Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell sent a note to his GOP members informing them that talks are making progress, but they're not close to a deal on immigration just yet, and likely won't be for at least another week. And NBC News' Julie Serkin reported earlier today that the White House has told Congressional Hispanic Caucus members that it is still very far from a deal with no framework in place. Nonetheless, a lot of people, including the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, are rightly outraged at the prospect of Biden even remotely caving to the far, far right on immigration reform. And it's a curious move from the president, given his soft numbers, polling numbers among young voters and people of color. Is he just trying to lose these votes as we get closer to the election? Joining me now is Andrea Flores, Vice President for Immigration Policy and Campaigns at Forward.us and a former Director of Border Management on President Biden's National Security Council. Andrea, thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to play a brief clip from the second and final 2020 presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Have a listen.
This is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise, why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
You come to the United States, you make your case for asylum. That may not be happening as we go forward with these immigration proposals from Senate Democrats and the White House. You worked for Joe Biden. Do you feel betrayed?
I'm very concerned about the contours of this deal because Democrats and Republicans, they're both coming to the table because they're concerned about conditions at the border. And they both are saying they want the number of unauthorized crossings to go down. But when you look at this deal, you look at policies that we know actually drive up border encounter numbers, and they create the images that we're seeing right now on the screen. Right now, I want to remind people that President Biden did start out his presidency promising to make it easier for people to come to this country legally and more difficult for smugglers and other bad actors to take advantage of migrants and helping them make these dangerous unauthorized crossings.
So why do you think President Biden is doing this? Is it the politics ahead of an election? Is it the border crossing numbers at record highs that he has to do something about? What is the thought process here?
I'm concerned that this is a political trap being set by Republicans because the policies that you're seeing on the table are not policies that any border expert would say would fix these challenges that he's concerned about. It's not going to change what we're seeing at the border, and it's certainly not going to change what we're seeing in cities. I do think this administration is right to be concerned and to show that to American voters that they have solutions to these issues. And I think the administration has been slow, especially in response to what we've been seeing in cities, because what we need from them is a real federal coordinated response to this challenge. But instead, they are looking at Trump-era policies that didn't work under Trump, that didn't lower crossings under Trump, and that certainly won't work now, especially going into an election year. You can imagine how now the border can be in the news every single day, even with Trump's policies in place.
But surely, Andrea, Republicans will now go silent because they got what they wanted. Haha, yeah, right. Last question to you. You tweeted this week, quote, a good reminder that if POTUS had been fully engaged in negotiations a year ago, millions of undocumented youth might have gained a path to citizenship. Instead, his team is fighting to codify laws that will target mixed-status families with nationwide expedited removal. Briefly, what should he have done a year ago, 2 years ago, on this issue that he didn't or couldn't?
Well, I've worked on this issue. I worked for President Obama. I worked in the Senate on this issue and for President Biden. And what we've known in immigration reform in the last decade is Democrats have always stood firm, and they said, if we're going to make a deal, we will not leave behind the undocumented, and we will fix the broken parts of the system that lead to the challenges we're seeing today. And I'm concerned President Biden is abandoning that framework. A year ago, I was in the Senate. We were working on a similar negotiation, but we were also talking about legalizing dreamers. And so President Biden, I think, should be far more worried about what solutions he has right now for DACA recipients who may lose DACA in the coming years, for people who are eligible for temporary protected status, which he could issue right now and protect more undocumented people in this country. Those are the policies that I went to go work for him to try and help him implement, but also that so many voters were hoping that he would lead differently than President Trump, not be fighting right now to turn his policies into law.
Andrea, Flores, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.